watching this video, then you're probably looking at buying one of these utes, trucks, vehicles, whatever you want to call it, and you're probably wondering whether it is worth the big price tag they come with. So today we're going to go over the modifications I've already done, and we're going to go over some of the pros and cons and see if we can justify the high cost of these vehicles. And I'm going to compare this to the previous vehicles I owned, and after 6 months I'm hoping that I can give you guys a better understanding whether or not this is the vehicle for you. And now we are here. We've had this vehicle for 6 months now, and since putting the wheels, lift kit and flares on, we've done about 10,000 kilometers. The car has done just over 20,000 kilometers now, and I'm making this video to discuss the pros, the cons, and answer all the questions you guys have. Appreciate all the love on the previous 2 videos. If you haven't watched them, go back and watch the first 2 videos in this series. There's going to be plenty more to come, and as you can see, there is issues. So we'll get to that soon. But let's start with answering some of your guys' questions. Come join me over here. So the number one question that you guys have is what lift kit it is. Now, a lot of you may not have watched the first video. If you haven't, go watch the first video of us installing the lift kit. I do mention it in there. A lot of you guys maybe come from the flare video or have just seen the car on Instagram or something. So we went with the Dobinson's 3-inch in the front and 1.75 inch in the rear, which equates to about 3-inch in the front and 2-inch in the rear. We also went with the 280 kilo springs in the rear because we're going to be putting a rooftop tent on and a fridge and all that kind of thing in the rear. At the moment, unloaded, it does sit up a little bit higher. It's not too bad now because we're on some uneven ground. I ordered that kit directly from Dobinson's and it was here the next day, all the way in Victoria from Queensland. So super fast delivery there, and they had it in stock. Secondly, Black Hawk control arms, also in the lift kit video. I also ordered them online. They took a little bit longer to come, maybe a week. They come from Perth. I'll link down here where I ordered them. I think it's like Perth Performance Diesel or something. I can't remember the name of the website, but I'll link it on the screen here below. And the wheels and tires I purchased from Swerve Tires in Melbourne. So hit them up on Instagram or Facebook. He's got his number on there. You can give him a call, give him a text, and you'll be able to organize these. He does a lot of the beadlock wheels for a lot of guys around Victoria especially, and he's into comp trucks and stuff, so he knows what the go is. He has a massive range of tires to choose from and is very experienced at fitting 35s, 33s and all that kind of thing. Secondly, you guys ask about the fuel economy with the V6 diesel. So obviously going up to the 35s and the bigger the lift, the fuel economy is going to be worse than what it normally is. Now, I've had the car recalibrated and had the gearbox recalibrated so that the fuel economy shows correct on the dash and that the gear shifts are all correct. On average, when the car is basically empty and it's just people in the car, I'm getting around between mid-10s and 11s per 100k, so 10.2 to 11 litres per 100k. When the car's fully loaded and I've got weight in the back and I've got people in the back, I'm around like 11s, low 11s. And when I'm towing just over 2 ton, I'm anywhere between 13 and 15 litres per 100k. So that just depends on how windy it is, how much fuel I got, what's loaded up with the race car and all that kind of thing, which to me I think is really good. I've come from a 79 series Land Cruiser and we would get around 18 litres per 100k, 19 litres per 100k when fully loaded. Unless we're on the freeway and no trailer or anything, not towing anything, then we would get like, 14. So massive improvement for us, and yeah, I have no issues with the fuel economy. If you choose to not go with 35s and you go a smaller tire, you will definitely get into the like real low 10s all the time, and I would say you would definitely get lower fuel economy when towing. Before we had fitted the wheels and stuff, I was getting around high 9s, so which is pretty good. Hopefully that answers some of the common questions. If you have more questions, leave them down in the comments below and I'll try to answer them the best I can. A lot of guys trying to order this kit and stuff from overseas. I will link it. I don't know if some of these places sell these things overseas, but obviously there is a market for these vehicles overseas. So pretty cool that everyone's getting around them and starting to modify them. Now let's address the elephant in the room. There's clearly something missing here. As you can see, the front half of my flare is gone and my front parking sensor is gone. This is the case for both sides of the vehicle. Unfortunately, the other day I was coming back from South Australia and it was quite a windy day and I was coming head on into the wind and a truck coming the other way blew the flare basically straight off. Now, at first I was very confused like how could possibly happen, because there is screws all the way up here, and I assume with the loose fit, the air got underneath the flare. I jumped out of the car, I checked this side, and there was still one on this side, but it had blown off as well and was hanging down by the parking sensor and one screw. I removed that. It is kind of salvageable, but it's pretty badly damaged, and I don't want to put it on the car. Now, unfortunately, I contacted EGR, I spoke to someone, and then I went and made a warranty claim on it. Now, they knocked back the warranty, saying that it was because of the 35s were rubbing against it and there was clear rubbing marks on the flare. This wasn't the case. The rubbing marks of the photo of the flare I sent was from when the flare came off the vehicle and was rubbing on the tyre on the highway. Now, I did almost 9,000 kilometers with these flares before I had any issues. I knew that that wasn't the problem. Now, one thing that I will be very transparent with you guys, they will not warrant it because I cut the bottom screw off and the middle screw, which I'll show how we did that in the last video. If you're going to be running anything 33, 0 offset and up, you're going to have to cut those screws off. So I strongly recommend using some Sikaflex or another form of mounting down in the lower section to prevent the flare from coming off. Now, I didn't do that because I'd checked it a few times after installing it. I drove on the highway, I checked, I had no issues with how the flare was staying on there. It wasn't until I was doing 110 with a massive head-on wind that it actually became an issue. So that's just something to keep in mind. They will not warrant it. Which is quite interesting, but they did offer a trade discount, so I can get a new pair of these with a fitting kit for about $315. So that's what I'll be doing because it looks absolutely horrible without the bumper. The other option would be to fit a bull bar, but not at that stage yet. So I want to keep the standard bumper, so I'll be replacing that. But I thought that was something that is really important to let you guys know, that if you do install these flares, just make sure that they are secure. And if you don't use the bottom screws, make sure you install them by other means, whether that's Sikaflex or something, just to stop them lifting that little bit in the wind. As you can see, these ones are perfectly fine, but they do have all the screws in them. So let's get on to the pros of the next gen Ranger in the V6 Wildtrak. I often recommend these cars to people. I actually find this one of the best tow cars I've had. And I'm going to compare it to my GU Patrol and my 79 Series Land Cruiser because that's where my experience is at. At the end of the day, this is just my personal opinion based on my experience. So personally, one of the biggest pros I found is the gearbox. This thing drives so smooth, even with the 35s, tows very smooth, it holds the torque curve, and the 10-speed just allows it to be where it needs to be without any sharp changes or anything like that. And I think that's what makes the entire car. I feel like if you had the gearbox out of the 3.2 PX3 Ranger and if it was back to a 5 or 6 speed gearbox, I just feel like the car would be way different. And originally I was worried about going from my high-powered 79 Series Land Cruiser, and when I say high-powered, it wasn't standard. It made 220 kilowatt or something and 800 newton meters of torque. So going down to something like this, which I'll put on the screen, the figures of this are like 160 kilowatt or something, 150 kilowatt and 500 newton meters or something. It's a massive drop down, and I was worried that I wouldn't be able to load it up as much, I wouldn't be able to put the car in and wouldn't just want to sit on 110. That's not the case at all. The gearbox basically does all the work and makes up for the lack of power, or lack of compared to other vehicles I've had, power. And basically it becomes a band-aid for that. So absolutely zero issues in terms of power, towing capacity. Yeah, no issues there for me. Another pro is the interior. It does feel like a modern vehicle and everything seems to work and be very comfy and enjoyable. Another real benefit of having a modern vehicle with this kind of suspension modifications and stuff is the road noise. The road noise is really good. Apart from, you do still get like the normal 35-inch big mud terrain tire noise on the road, but it's actually really drained out by the rest of the vehicle. And inside the vehicle is relatively quiet. In our 79 Series, when we were driving, we had a big exhaust. The road noise was really bad. You couldn't even talk to people in the back. So it's, again, a massive improvement on that. Next pro, the headlight system. I was originally going to put a light bar on the roof immediately with this. The Matrix LED headlights are a game changer. honestly cannot fault them. They just work, and yeah, you really don't need much more. Eventually, if I put a bull bar on, I will put some spotlights on, but really it doesn't need it, and they just do what they need to do. That's another pro. Obviously we got the premium pack Wildtrak, so these headlights are in the premium pack. But if you're looking at getting a Wildtrak, definitely get the premium pack. The better sound system, better headlights, better tail lights. There's all the little things, the roof switches, they do make a little bit of a difference. The sound system is amazing in this thing. A big thing for me, always want to put a sub in. This comes with a small 8-inch sub, but it is actually quite powerful, and it's been very well designed. Yeah, it just is very balanced and sounds really good for a stock system, so it's good to see. I really don't have that many pros because the car is just everything you would expect it to be. Everything they market just actually meets my expectations, and it's been quite good. So I'm going to move on to the cons of these modifications. Obviously, we had the flare damage. Second thing that has gone wrong since doing this is the sway bar links we installed. We did about 1,500 kilometers, we did some beach driving, and we come back, and by the time we got back, as we come into town, we were about 5 minutes away from our house, and there was a slight knocking noise in the front. Instantly I just had this feeling that it was the sway bar. It was under bumps and compression, and it didn't matter what wheel hit the bump, it was always making the same knocking noise. Anyway, I disconnected the sway bar link and I haven't connected it back since, and it's been probably another 8,000 kilometers since I have connected it. Somewhere, now I looked at all the ball joints on the sway bar link, and I can't see any visual signs of damage or wear, but I believe one of them is knocking. So I need to get that out and have a look and maybe send it back to Pro Fender or work out if the sway bar is knocking. I couldn't see anything loose and I couldn't find anything visually at first look. So I really need to get the car up, maybe on the hoist, and have a proper look and try to get around that. So that is a little bit annoying because I went and spent the effort to buy the sway bar links, and I want to run a front sway bar, but it's not world ending to just have it disconnected. And I don't drive this car much on the road apart from towing, but it's just something to keep in mind. Maybe it's the Pro Fender links, I'm not going to say it is, but yeah, they didn't last long and I cannot find any other problems that it could be. So I really need to pull the links out and check them thoroughly. Now this only applies to the people in Australia and mostly Victoria, but I'm going to mention it anyway. The servicing lead time. So I booked this in I went to book this in for its 15,000 kilometer service. This is the first service I was taking the car in for, and I went to my local Ford dealership and they said it would be around 5 to 6 weeks. And that just blew my mind because I know that they offer the 2-hour servicing, and it was basically, and I was still 1,000 kilometers away from the service, and I thought I was booking it early. And I do a lot of Ks randomly, not many like planned kilometers, so often I can build up kilometers and not expect to get there so fast. And I'd done a lot of trips and I was like, geez, I need to take it in for its first service. So anyway, I called around, and everywhere within a 2.5 hour radius of where I live was at the most 4.5 weeks was the absolute earliest I can get. And that was me driving 1 hour and 45 minutes to take the car for a service, taking the day off work, booking it in, dropping it off there, having to fill in time, and then taking the car back home. Luckily for me, I have an awesome mate, Cade, and he was able to get in touch with someone who is a manager down in Melbourne, which is about 3 hours, roughly a little bit over 3 hours for me to where I had to go, but they were able to get it in within a week. So my only problem is that is a rare occurrence, and it seems as though 4 weeks is a pretty standard lead time, maybe 3 to 4 weeks if you're really early at booking in. You really just have to be mindful of that because, you know, I didn't want to take the car over the service period and then that come back on me because I wasn't able to book it in. Now that might not be a thing, but I didn't want to risk warranty just based because I couldn't get it in for a service. So I was lucky, I was able to drop the car off to Cade and he was able to take it in for a service for me, and we got it done bang on 15,000 kilometers. But that's just something to keep in mind, and obviously it only applies to people in Australia. But yeah, to me, that is a con, and I know Ford can be really good with their warranty and servicing stuff. In my opinion, that's almost too long, because if I had a Triton or a BT50, I could almost guarantee I could get in next week or the week after. So it's usually like 1 to 2 weeks at all of those places, especially out in country Victoria where I am. Quick interruption with today's video, Future Nathan here. You know when you're at those jobs that you really don't want to do and you just keep putting them off? Well, my wife's been nagging me about the headlight globes in her daily driver for months now. So I finally bit the bullet and ordered myself a set of Exito LED globes. And I just want to show you the difference between the factory Ford globes and these LED replacement globes. As you can see here, the results are amazing. Another, I guess you would say, con that's not really a con, but the lack of excitement with a vehicle like this and the want to go hardcore four-wheel driving. I'll insert some clips of my old GU Patrol. It was aggressive, it was fun, it was bulletproof. You knew you wouldn't break anything off-road. This is a lot different. I'm a lot more gentle with it. I'm always worried about breaking a CV, even on small tracks and that. It only takes one rock bounce and you could easily snap a CV. I don't carry any spare CVs or anything with me. So this is just a car that I wouldn't personally go hard four-wheel driving in, and if you are going to do that, you just need to be prepared that they are not as bulletproof as something like a GU Patrol. Even the Land Cruiser we had, it just seems a little bit more robust than what these are. Not that I've had any issues, and this thing just gets everywhere quite easily. I wouldn't want to be hardcore four-wheel driving it, and coming into the winter season, it'll be very interesting how it goes in the mud, especially with all the electronics. So that's probably another downside to the vehicle, but it's not the reason I bought it. But if you're looking at buying something for that type of purpose, then yeah, just definitely consider all the different things that can go wrong in these modern vehicles. Another downside to going to the 35s in the zero offset is the already bad steering lock of these vehicles is even worse. So you really don't get much of a turning circle. It's a little bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world, and I just expect it when I make modifications to cars like this. Now, we're going to take a look inside the car for a couple recommendations I'd suggest. The other thing that is happening is as people get in and out the car, because I've removed the side step, they stand here, which is scratching the paint, and yeah, any dirt there, it gets pushed on with their feet. As you can see, the car needs a good clean, because we've just come back from the beach, but they're standing here and it's scratching here. So if you were going to remove the side steps, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some clear film, some PPF film along here, just to protect the step. And the other thing is, go and purchase from any of the places, I think 21 Overlay is one of them that make screen protectors. As you can see, look at all the fingerprints in the screen. Obviously it is a large screen and everything you basically do is touchscreen, so I strongly recommend putting a screen protector on this, and you can also get a screen protector for this little glass plasticky panel that is where your hand goes over every time you shift it between the gears. So they're just a couple little recommendations that I would definitely look at doing. The other thing is, if you haven't already, speak to your dealer. This plastic center console here and the plastic on the door, mine are starting to fade, hard to see in the video, but early models, I think, well, this is 2024, but all the models, early models have, the plastics didn't have the UV stabilization in them, and it is a known issue, so you can get them replaced under warranty and do it sooner rather than later, and it does take a while to get the plastics in, so I'll be doing mine shortly. But yeah, just something to note. Another thing is the wireless phone charger. It doesn't really work that well. It tends to get your phone very warm. Definitely need to take the case off if you're going to use it, otherwise the phone ends up just getting too hot and turning off. So that's kind of annoying. Not that I use it much. I usually have my phone up here with a cable, and obviously it's wireless CarPlay, so you want to kind of be able to utilize that, but I definitely don't have my phone down there ever. Another pro to the vehicle is all the cup holders it comes with. If you haven't seen these, definitely go check it out. They got lots of storage and lots of cup holders, which is something I always look for in a car. Looking at the rear of the vehicle, the tub is a really good size. Unlike some vehicles these days, you can still get a decent amount of space between the two wheel tubs. And obviously I've got my race spares and stuff in there at the moment. They can basically permanently live there, and yeah, plenty of space. So this one was short and sweet, but I wanted to give you a hint of what we're doing in the next video for this series, and that is removing this sailplane. As you can see, all the Wild Tracks come with this sailplane, which takes up a lot of space, and I don't know, it just looks generic, and I want to make it a little bit different because you really don't see them without this on. So this bolts into here and all bolts onto the top of the tub, and what that will do by removing that, not only will it aesthetically look better, but it'll allow us to build our tub rack over the top of this. Now, my goal with this car is to build the lowest possible tub rack I can, that I can still fit wheels and stuff underneath, but I can fit the rooftop tent as low as I can and hopefully below the roof line. That's what we're gonna be doing in the next video, so please subscribe, stick around and watch us transform this vehicle even more, because it is such a good vehicle already and I can't wait to see what it's like once it has 12 volt rooftop tent and it's ready for us to go away and enjoy.